Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I have an incredible man with me today on the show. His name's Ivo Nelson. He has been a personal friend of mine and has been on such an incredible journey. Ivo, you're so accomplished. I don't even know where to begin, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and we'll take it from there. So I'm going to
All
turn it over
right.
to you.
Thank you, Wendy, and I appreciate the chance to really talk to this group. Okay. And when I say that, I'm going to be very transparent and saying this is really the first time I've had this kind of a group to address, and it has been something I've been wanting to do and looking forward to. And the reason why is this. So if we take, kind of who I was recently, okay, before I retired, I was people would call me a legend in my industry. I was a very successful businessman. I was an entrepreneur, built several businesses. They were all, you know, really great businesses. I ended up writing this book
Yes,
called
we'll talk
Love-Based
about that.
Culture,
We will talk
which
about the
is a
book.
lot about what I learned in my career of building companies that were less based on fear and more based on love. Um, and so that's kind of the at the end, if we back up from there, and a part of why I like to address this particular audience is because of the spirituality and the role that really played in my life to get me from point A to point B. I grew up in Waco, Texas, and I thought Waco was just a dead town. Everybody wanted to get out of there. Now it's like well known for a lot of reasons. Okay.
Right.
Uh, but I wound up in the West Coast, out in the San Francisco Bay Area. En route to there, I lived in Denver for a little while. Before I was in Denver, even on my senior year of high school, many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with a man, Baba Ram Dass. He wrote probably one of the most significant spiritual books ever written, called Be Here Now.
Mhm.
And I was a senior in high school, which was 1973. So we're talking about a long time ago when
Yeah,
that book came out.
yeah.
And I was a typical high school kid. I mean, I was not a good student. I was partying, doing drugs, going out to the lake, drinking kegs of beer. I mean, it was like school was the lowest thing on my list. I read that book uh, towards the end of my junior year and just stopped everything. Stopped doing drugs, stopped drinking, became a vegetarian,
Wow.
became a vegetarian. Eventually moved up to Denver, Colorado, and became kind of got associated with a group of people that were also spiritual. I taught meditation classes, I taught yoga classes. And again, this is back in the early 70s when meditation and yoga really wasn't very cool. You were kind of a weirdo, actually, if you were doing stuff like that.
You're ahead of your time.
Yeah. And I eventually ended up in the West Coast, out in the Palo Alto, San Francisco area. Uh, and I'll be honest with you, I was chasing a girl. Okay. That lasted about 6 weeks. And then I had to go get a job. And the only job I can think of, because I really needed to make some money, it's not cheap living out there. And I thought, well, I had no skills, but I could be a construction worker, because when you grow up in Texas, everybody in California thinks you know how to swing a hammer. And so I went out and bought a hammer and a nail belt and just started walking around to construction sites and got picked up by this group that I went to work for them. And it didn't take them long to figure out I had no idea what I was doing.
Mhm.
But I was the first guy in, I was the last guy out. I had something they didn't see in most of their people, which is a really strong work ethic, which really led to me starting up my own little handyman business. And keep in mind where I was, even at that time, was Silicon Valley. Okay. And so I started contracting with, some of these big technology companies, telecom companies, to do handyman work for them. And really had one company that locked into me and basically just used me full time. Okay. And hired me. And one weekend, one asked me to come run their Xerox machine because their Xerox guy was going to be gone for the week on vacation. And the first document that came to me was from HR, and it was a list of all the people in the company and what their salaries were. And so I just kind of peeked into it. And what I noticed is the top paid person in the company was a guy named Joe Zilikovich. I'll never forget him, and I'll explain why in a minute. And then the very lowest paid person in the entire company was me. I was the lowest paid person in the entire company. I thought, well, I didn't really care. I was getting by and I was happy. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And I was still working, I just went 120% no matter what I did. And one day, the CEO's secretary, a very large telecom company, came and said, Mr. Zilikovich would like to meet with you. And I thought, oh man, I'm getting fired, I was probably flirting too much, something, I was scared, really scared. I went up to the office. Of course, you walk in, there's a secretary who goes into another secretary that goes into a room, and it looks like a football field, big conference table in there. And I wait, and here comes Mr. Zilikovich, sits down next to me. And he says, Ivo, you got a reputation around here. What are you doing with your life? And I said, well, Mr. Zilikovich, I'm making a go of it. I've got this little handyman I'm doing, blah, 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 blah. And he just says, cut me off mid-sentence and said, Ivo, let me tell you what you're doing with your life. You're wasting your life. And let me tell you what you need to do.
Wow.
And he started laying out a plan. Wow. He said, you need to go back to school. You need to get a degree. I'm going to suggest you get a technology degree and then get your MBA or get an emphasis in business somewhere along the way. Okay. And go into technology because that's going to be the future. So I walked out of his office and it was like I could hear angels singing because I felt like I just met with God, Packed up my bags a month later and moved back to my hometown of Waco, went to Baylor University, got a technology degree, and then off to the races, on a career in technology. Turned out to be healthcare kind of focused technology. Mm-hmm. And I tell that story because in the book, there's something that's weaves through this entire book. In fact, through chapters, at the end of every chapter, I put in there what I call acts of love, which is, to me, little things that you can do in the workforce that are acts of love that makes people's lives better. Okay. There's just ideas. Okay. Example is, when I was running companies and we had to go somewhere, and sometimes it was a conference and we have a whole bunch of people going to the conference waiting for the airplane to come in. If I had a first class ticket, I always gave it to the lowest paid person that was going to be on that flight. To them, it was special.
Of course.
When I started doing it, all of the other executives that work for me started doing the same thing, and this thing about I'm not better than you, we are equal. Just because I've got a place on the hierarchy that's different than you doesn't mean anything to two of us as human beings, and you deserve everything that I have, and this is what I call an act of love. Okay. So, that meeting with Joe Zilikovich was probably the first time I'd experienced somebody who had absolutely no reason. He had no reason to sit down with the lowest paid person in the entire company, right? He had no reason to do that, He took time out of his busy day running a multi-billion-dollar company for little old me. And guess what? That changed my life. And then I look at the number of people whose lives I've changed because of a simple act of love that this man provided to me.
There's this ripple effect, right?
Right.
That goes out that you're not even aware of, I think, often when you can offer something.
Let's pay it forward, as they say,
Yes. Without agenda, without expectation, but like you said, coming from the heart. And you have no idea how many people's lives you've changed, the ripple effect of their lives being changed, rippling out. It's just so incredible. that you were able to then position yourself into these different companies and positions of leadership where you could
Well,
have an even broader impact, right?
it is. And we actually spawned more CEOs out of the couple of companies that I started early than
Mhm.
any other company in the healthcare industry. And all of them are then taking this love-based culture concept and using it as a part of the way that they provide leadership to their company, you know. And so, you know, over trust me, it wasn't like easy, okay. You start this company and you provide love to everybody and then bam, you successful company. But these companies actually grew to be in a large part because of the culture. I mean, people, your audience is going to understand that many of them spend more time at work than they do with their spouses,
Of
you know,
course. Yeah.
and the importance of having a place that's safe and where they
Mhm.
feel like everybody's got your back, you've got their back, you know, and from a leadership perspective, you look at your employees and, you know, they have your back, you know, it's a special feeling, okay, as opposed to a lot of the fear-based companies that are out there where it's all about goals and objectives and
I think a lot of times,
penalties.
when people don't feel valued, they leave. So you end up getting a lot of turnover, one, or burnout because you're
Mhm.
driving them so hard. You know, I think there's something to be said about the culture you were creating and modeling in your own life and
But
action for
yeah, and
others.
it's interesting that when I collected these acts of love for the book, and I, you know, sent queries out, so a lot of different methods to get, and I had literally thousands of responses, you know, and
That's
I
so
get to cherry pick off of that the really cool stories and there are so many, you know, from you know a woman who's got a dying husband, and but she doesn't have the PTO,
right.
and the employees contributed their PTO so she could be home with her husband, and then the company matched it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm saying there's just story after story after story. Now, in all these stories, how many of them do you think had anything to do with money? I didn't, not a single one of them had mentioned, I got this great raise, I got these stock options, nothing in there
Mm-hmm.
about, not as, over thousands of responses about what they remember, you know, as something special to them. Many of them went back 3 decades of something somebody did for them that they
Wow.
remembered.
That,
Okay?
I mean, well, you're talking about someone who did something for you like decades ago,
Yeah,
right?
that's
I
right.
mean,
I
honestly.
never ever forgot it, you know.
And did you ever reconnect with him and tell him what an impact he
It's
had on your
funny,
life?
you know, that's probably the most common question I get when I do public
So
speaking.
curious, you know?
And I tried back then, they don't have all these find me
Internet and all that.
apps
Like,
or anything. So I
right.
actually tried to find, he was from Canada. The
Oh,
company was based out of Canada, but it got acquired and some company acquired that company, you
mhm.
know.
So he got
So,
lost in
you
the
know, and
shuffle.
the
He went
HR
into the,
departments, they're
yeah,
not going to share that information with you. You
right,
can't hunt them down through people
right.
searches. Just what I'm 100% sure, you know, he passed away a long time. He was an old guy then. So
Okay.
I'm sure he's dead, but I really, really, there was kind of a defining moment of, in business. They have this award called the E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year Award. So it's the biggest business award really you can get. And I won it for the state of Texas in the category of technology and was like just beside myself with thanking all the people that had helped me get there, you know, because it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me. And Joe Zelkovich was one of them. And it's like I so much wanted to call him on the phone.
Right,
And so you have no idea the
right.
impact you made on me,
On this young kid,
this
right,
young
who was your
kid, you
lowest
know.
paid employee.
Right, right. So yeah, so those acts of love's something that just, you know, have been there. But you know, there are a lot of other lessons that I've learned, you know. I mean, um, because we're talking about to some extent with this group of people, the spiritual aspects of business, even, you know, nobody ever correlates the two. Even using the word love in a business leadership book, I had friends of mine who didn't read the book because they thought it was some kind of a fruitcake book, right? It's actually very practical common sense.
Ivo.
Okay. These are men. These are men who just like, no, you can't love and, this is like the
I mean,
world
there's a
we
lot
live
of
in.
programming there, right? There's a
A lot
cult
of programming, a
programming that's
ton of
not
programming. It's a dog eat dog world,
right. I mean, it's a lot of ego, it's a lot of masculine energy, and
right?
so I just want to I want you to hold the book up again so we can talk about the title of it, The 10 Principles of a Love-Based Culture.
Right.
How authentic business leaders trust their employees to do the right thing. And what inspired you to write the book?
Uh, I became really well known in my industry, and so there was this nonstop flow of people who wanted to start companies, or they were already started a company and they needed, just some advice on how to get it to the next level. And I'd always meet with them. I've never said no to anybody. And
Mhm.
a lot of times I'd bring them into my home and we'd spend a weekend helping to kind of working with them to develop a strategy and just getting to know them a little better. And I didn't have a good template, It's like I was kind of winging it.
Mhm.
And I thought I'm doing a disservice to these people who need help.
Mhm.
And I need to really, really think this through and I need to get it on paper. And so this is also written with my number two in this company, the book's primarily patterned after, which is a company called Healthlink. And the lady's name is Dana Sellers, who was the chief operating officer. And uh, so she helped, okay, write the book. And she also clearly helped build the businesses. Uh, but it was a book that I thought needed to be written because we had created some magic where people 20 years later would say, "That's the best company I ever worked for." And and so the question is, why? What is it that made that company such a good company? It's not just we sit around conference rooms holding hands singing kumbaya, I mean, that's not what it's all about. There were a lot of things that went into trusting people to
I
do the
also
right.
think when people feel seen and heard and
Well,
valued, it goes a long way because so many companies don't have, they're just another employee ID. They're just a title, a director, a VP. There's not like an interest in knowing them as individuals, in providing an environment that's conducive for connection,
well,
and
I think that's a key word there, connection, because
mhm,
part of what creates connection is teamwork.
mhm.
And to have teamwork, you got to have people who really believe that they're empowered and that they can make decisions. And they have to believe that you've got their back, they've got your back, and they've got each other's back too. And when those dynamics come to play, I can tell you this is where, as a leader, it was one of the most significant uh, kind of defining moments in my career. And I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a decision that I made void of the team.
Hmm.
And it created so much damage in the company that probably set us back a year.
Wow. Oh, Ivo, you must have felt that really hard.
And it was because I didn't show
Wow.
respect to a culture that
Wow.
I had played a role in building.
Wow. That
Okay.
must have been humbling
And,
for
and I
you.
walked away from that saying, I actually pulled all of the managers together in a room
Wow.
and I apologized to them.
Wow.
And I told them, I said, I made a mistake. I didn't show respect and it is never going to happen again. And from that day on, the company just took off
Right.
because,
Right.
we needed that, sometimes you need those defining moments. And by the
Wow.
way, we make mistakes,
Of
you know,
course.
got to own up to it, move on.
Well, I'm curious, you've walked this path for so long and then you retired. I know you've changed so much in your soul evolution through this entire process. And I read your book, of course, when you
Thank
first
you.
published it. And I I remember you telling this story about your wife, and it's just stuck with me forever. And I'd love for you to share that story because I don't know, it just was so impactful. The
Well, it
revelation you
changed
had.
my life. It's
Yeah,
another one of those.
right.
Like
So
a
if you can share that, I think it'd be such a great story.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So what happened is this company Healthlink had gotten to be big. It was the largest privately held company for what we did in the country. We'd gone global, doing business in a variety of places around the world. And the intent of this company always, we had investors, okay, so we couldn't just keep going, and they were looking for an exit of some kind. And
mhm.
so we had a company approach us so we could be acquired. They wanted to acquire us. That company was this teeny tiny little company called IBM. And we were, over $100 million in revenues, but they were, $100 billion in revenues. So
Right.
it felt like we're getting swallowed up by the big guy. But, I thought they kind of got a good reputation, this could work.
Mhm.
So they acquired the company. I was put up as an executive running the healthcare stuff in IBM, had about an $8 billion budget. And I was just gone all the time. I mean, literally, there was such a huge demand for what I did all over the world. I mean, literally, I would, I'd go to 5 or 6 countries in Europe in the course of a week. I
Oh,
made a day trip to Beijing, China once, just
gosh.
for a meeting.
I know. Wow.
I mean,
That's
it was just crazy, and I didn't have a lot of experience in understanding how to maneuver through that. Personally, I was trying really to make this thing work and to make sure that I was a part of something successful.
right.
And I made a 3-year commitment. I spent 3 years there.
Hmm.
But it took a toll. I mean, it took a toll and on me physically, spiritually, and in my relationship. And through all of that, ended up getting divorced. Okay. And we lived in a little community up north of Houston and on this little lake. And uh, I bought a house just really, you could see my old house from the house I bought. I wanted to be golf cart driving distance because I still had a daughter in high
Hmm.
school, so that she could zip back and forth easy,
Hmm. Hmm.
and but I never will forget from one of these grueling international trips, kind of pulling into my driveway, and I'm a guy, frankly, at that stage in my career, I had everything. I mean, everybody saw me as a guy with the golden touch. Everything I touched turned to gold. I made more money I could spend in this lifetime. I had, you know, material possessions out the yazoo, drove a nice car, had this nice house. I bought this house. I just gave a blank check to a decorator and said, look, just go make it a cool house. I'm busy and back on airplanes.
Right. Right.
I walk into this house on this Friday night and I'm standing there, and if you know this, what the smell is of new carpet
Hmm.
and some fresh paint, and there's a glass wall that's looking out over this lake. It's beautiful, and there's photo frames up on the cabinet that have the pictures that came with the frame. You know,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
like somebody else's dog, somebody else's kid.
Right.
I'm standing in this room, and I literally fall to my knees with tears just rolling down my eyes. I mean, really, when I say I'm a guy that had everything, I was a guy that had everything, and yet I had nothing. I
Right.
had lost everything,
Right.
and
That
I
revelation.
felt like I had lost everything. I
Yeah.
lost the love of my family. I'd lost respect for myself. And I mean, this was no doubt at all in my mind that God reached out and touched me. I mean, it was like a lightning bolt coming right down through the top of my head.
Oof.
Okay. And what came with that was this download that was very clear as to what I had to do.
Mm.
There was no question as to what I had to do. And one of them was You got to go back and get your wife back. You got to go apologize to people who you weren't nice to, and we're in business. Sometimes it gets rough, but you need to go back, and anybody and as I'm like crazy busy, there are people who I felt like I needed, including some family members that I needed to be apologetic to. And so it was like a list, and the significance of this feeling was so profound. I mean, the tears didn't stop right there. I mean, I had to take a towel with me in my car because
Oh,
I couldn't stop crying.
oh.
The emotion was just so overwhelming. Okay, now here's the fun part, okay? Because you probably don't get to meet people tell romantic stories, right, on your podcast, okay? So
Sure.
so this you got to go get her back part, not so easy because when you go through a divorce, it's tough, it's hard, and
Right.
in a lot of ways you may still be in love, but you fall out of love in a way, and uh, you certainly have a lot of grief from that, and my wife felt a lot of that. And she actually even was starting to date this other guy, early stages of dating this other guy. So it's like, okay, I got to get her back, but I got to get rid of this guy. So, so what I did was
Oh boy.
I started leaving her love notes on her car every day. I'd go find cards that were blank on the inside. I'd write a memory of our lives or a
Oh,
poem. I'd write something that was sentimental. She never had a day where she didn't walk back to her car after work and there wasn't something there awaiting her. Sometimes it'd be just a single rose. If she traveled, her secretary was on my side. She'd tell me where she was going, and I would mail a card to her hotel. So when she got there, she could see the card. I didn't want her to go a single day
wow.
without feeling my presence. Okay.
Wow.
Now that all led to, uh, finally, sitting down, having a conversation, and then me calling her up, asking her out for a date, getting all dressed up, bouquet of flowers, old school, man. I'm talking.
You were putting some serious effort into this. Wasn't
This is,
just like a one and done thing. You like
well,
really were committed to this.
I tell people it's like all of the marketing things I ever learned in my life had to come to barriers. So she opens the door and I'm standing there with these flowers and she just bursts into tears.
Oh,
And then, we've been together ever since.
wow.
And I tell the story because on the one hand, it's a love story.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it was my moment when my ego got blasted out of my head. It blasted out of my head, and I had to redefine who I really was and what I wanted to be as we move forward in life, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so I had lost myself. And so this period of time was, part of it was I got to get back to fundamentals. I got to get back and get my family put back together. But part of it also was I got to get me put back together.
Right.
Okay. And I never, since these early days of the Baba Ram Das, I never lost sight of the importance of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my business career, before I'd go give a big presentation, I would go into the bathroom, splash water on my face, go stand by the window, close my eyes, and pray that the words that come out of my mouth come from a higher source and not from me. And that was just the routine that I got into. So it's like I never lost that touch with spirituality, but it got to the point where uh, the rigors of life just got to me, and so this experience that I had, and everybody, it's like a near death experience, is what I people who have these
An
completely
ego death
changing
is what
lives.
it is. It
It's
is
a
an
it's a
ego
it's a
death.
near death experience while you're alive. Okay,
Right.
everybody needs to have one of these. It's
Yeah.
painful, man. It's painful. But as we
Crash
all
course.
know, these are experiences we learn from, right? I mean, that's how we grow. That's how our soul grows, is we have to go through these tough
Mhm.
times, or else we're never going to get to the next level at a soul level.
Right. Right.
I'm blessed that I was able to have that opportunity. blessed today that I'm still married and happily married and have 3 beautiful grandkids and, a family that I love.
How did you, how have you always had this love-based culture in you as you navigated throughout your career. But it's so much more than that, isn't it? When it comes to your personal story and your personal growth. It's like you can create it, right? And you can do it and you can speak it, but to embody it,
Well, you have to be it.
you have to be it. It's such a different thing,
Right.
right? It's a
Right.
different way of living. It's a
Mm-hmm.
different way of moving through life. Um, it's hard to explain what it feels like unless you're doing it, right? That's how I live my life, right? I am fully embodied as my soul self in my life. And everything I do aligns with that. And I often have to make difficult choices
Right.
because um, it's not aligned for me anymore,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's sometimes requires you to pivot. It requires you to pivot in the direction of your work, or it requires you to pivot in the direction of your relationship, or it requires you to get really clear about maybe a limiting belief or something you're holding on to that's holding
Mm-hmm.
you back, and you've got to let that go. I feel like this process of embodiment of ourselves as souls requires us to really pull back layers and layers of things that aren't reflective of our true self and nature and our soul going forward. And there's collateral damage sometimes when you choose yourself in that process, right? To live the most authentic and soul embodied way as you go forward.
Yeah, but I'm clearly of the belief that we're all on a path.
Mm-hmm.
We learn lessons from experiences. We have free will, but we have a team that helps keep us inside the guardrails.
Right, right.
And other people that we interact with, they are also on a path. And
Yes.
they need to have experiences. They need to experience pain. And that
Mhm.
path is not known. We don't know what that path is, right? We have to respect the fact that while while we might have to make what would be perceived as selfish decisions, on the other side, they are also going to have to go down a path that ultimately is in their best interest. They may not know that, but
Right.
and it's an experience that they have to have. I mean,
A
that's
hundred
just
percent. A
we
hundred
just can't
percent.
we
Which
can't
is,
get through this life without growth, without
well,
that,
I think
without growing in that way.
I think
That's
what's really powerful too is having the discernment and alignment and perspective to allow everybody their own path and not intervene, not
yeah.
control, not try to fix, save, rescue. That's a big part of this journey, is allowing people their chosen path, because it is their chosen path, even if it hurts
Yeah.
or feels uncomfortable emotionally for you.
Well, it is, but it helped me a lot. I mean, there were times. I mean, generally what you hear are the success stories when you talk about businesses and stuff like that. You don't hear about times in my life when I put my head on the pillow and not sure how I was going to meet payroll, and
Yeah,
it's Tuesday, and automatic deposits are done on Thursday, and I don't have the cash to make those deposits. Okay, and what always allowed me to go to sleep at night was being mindful. Just saying, okay, I'm in the here and now. Okay, I know what we have to do to get through this. I know what the plan is. Okay, let's lock that up. But worrying about it isn't going to do anything. You know,
right.
just living in the moment is everything. You know, and it became
Hmm.
a lifestyle that makes it makes life easier in a way. You know,
Yes.
And
Yes.
it makes the hard times easier too. It makes, especially if you can respect the fact that, for example, I've got a daughter who's, uh, man, she can just send me off the deep end. I mean, she does things and says things, and it's like, and it's painful too. It's painful. I mean, this is my
Right.
daughter. It hurts. Okay.
Right.
But then I take a step back and say she's on her path.
Right.
I can't engage in necessarily in being overly controlling of a path that ultimately she needs to have an experience in,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly. That I've had similar experiences with my son, and it has allowed me to master the art of detachment with love.
Right.
And I'm able to have more faith that that path is leading him, and in
Mm-hmm.
your case, your daughter, exactly where they need to be. I would check in, and be like, okay, I'm observing this, which feels really, like it's not going to have a good outcome, but then I'll get from myself to my higher self to me, he's on path, he's on track, and this is his choosing. He's going to navigate this way, but he is on his path and he's going to get where he needs to be. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
trust the process. You have to have faith in the unfolding. And just having that knowing within myself allows me to, when I check in, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to observe. I'm going to hold space. I'm
Right.
available if he wants to talk, or I will provide a hot meal, whatever. But it has allowed me to really just keep my heart open and really hold space for whatever the unfolding is. And I found just miracle after miracle when I can stay in that heart space
Mm-hmm.
and really hold the faith.
And
Yeah.
there's more and more openness to what you just described. Okay. And I was frankly a little surprised because after I write the book, I was asked to come to conferences and employee meetings and kind of give the typical, presentation. And I would weave into it, these concepts of mindfulness, and whatnot, and meditation. And when we get to question answer, and that is, I was kind of surprised. That's what people locked into. They want to know how to reduce stress in their life. They want to have better work-life balance. You know, uh, they have problems at home and they need to figure out how they balance that with the challenges they're having at work. And when I'd go into, meditation and mindfulness and these things, man, it was just like the room would light up.
Yeah.
It taught me that unlike when I was doing this in the early 70s, where if I were to go into a room and start talking like this, they'd be looking at you like you've been smoking something.
People are really thirsty for
Today,
it.
man, they're just gobbling it up. They're
Yeah.
looking hungry. Okay.
It's really important for people to have tools, and this isn't something that people have an awareness of. I mean, we tend to surround ourselves with people who are on similar journeys and kind of in this flow of, soul growth and everything very consciously. But there's a huge population of people who are just coming online right now where these concepts are maybe new in terms of incorporating them into their own personal lives. And
Mm.
it's helpful to hear it in a setting that you would maybe make a presentation to, or maybe they stumble upon that YouTube video late at night and they're like, oh, this resonates, or whatever, just divine timing or intervention to guide them where they need to, that right book in the bookstore or whatever it is. But there's a massive awakening happening on our planet right now, and I'm
Right.
very hopeful that humanity is going to continue to do their soul work individually and collectively to create a better world for our
Well, I
future.
mean, that's why we're here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm of the belief that this is my purpose. I mean, these people need to hear that message from somebody who they feel like is like them in a way, or at
Mm-hmm.
some point in my life was like them. And, you know, the universe has given me a platform.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I've done, as painful as it was sometimes, leads to being able to have a platform for to help folks who are waking up, you know. And all of us are going to have a different audience for that, you know.
Well, I find everyone has the people that they're meant to serve,
Mm-hmm.
right? People are also in a lot of different gradients of awakening. So you're going to have, leaders and teachers in every gradient to help get them to that next level. And then, you
Right.
know, and then they move on and then you've got another tier of people who are sharing messages that resonate and help get them, pull them up by the bootstraps and get them up to the next, so there's all these gradients of frequency that people are navigating through. As they're navigating through it and integrating the soul messages and clearing and releasing the density in their lives, things that aren't aligned with them, they're raising their frequency. And then you begin attracting a life that's more in resonance with that higher frequency and a little less struggle, a little more ease, a little more softening, opening, maybe a little more abundance to kind of pull you forward. And it's really a stair step, it's a spiral that we're traveling up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's a powerful process, but you have to have vulnerability and you have to be willing to confront yourself in a way that you never have before. And for many of us, myself included, it involved hardcore wake up calls, hardcore, like your experience, just where you're just like, I don't know what is happening right now, but I think either I'm dying or you're literally going through an ego death and it's really intense.
Yeah, I think, frankly, I think I knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
I don't think I was wondering about it at all. It really felt like,
It was super clear for you.
huh?
It was super clear what was being
Pretty.
asked of you, it sounds
One of the things I've learned kind of in life is that clarity of vision is it's always been everything to me. If I could see it. Now, I understand today a lot more about the quantum world and everything's happening all at once.
like. Hmm.
So when you are in the past and you see a vision of the future, you're really seeing today in a way.
Yeah.
I could see myself, in every role that I've had a very, very clear vision of what that was way ahead of time. Okay. It's just one of the mechanics of kind of getting from here to here. Okay. Uh, the vision, when I had this, what I call a God experience, it was a different kind of clarity. It wasn't the clarity that you're going to be doing this or you're going to have this role. It was a clarity of the person that you needed to be. And, uh, and that became my guiding light.
That's so beautiful, Ivo, that you were able to understand that in the moment and then
Well,
come.
I tell you, it wasn't me. It absolutely was not me.
Yeah, and there's a higher power there for sure.
That thing came, knocked me
Instantly.
to my knees.
Yeah, yeah. It's incredible the amount of suffering and difficulty we navigate in our human lives. I think everybody has it to varying degrees. And you don't really grow without navigating those things. And those things are literally mirrors for us, showing
Yeah.
us the internal world and landscape that needs to heal, those pieces that need to heal, those pieces that we need to let go of, those pieces of ourselves we have to confront. And it can be really difficult if you are on your journey alone and you don't have resources or support systems around you, to help you navigate it. But I do know that we are all guided by ourselves, by God, by the universe, whatever you want to call it, to our higher calling. And it's up to us to answer that call.
This is kind of a hokey analogy, but got this car. I don't know if you like when you're driving it on the highway, it knows where the lines are.
Right.
And
Right.
so when you get up close to a line, it nudges you back onto the highway. Now, if I want to grab the steering wheel and go off the highway, I can go off the highway.
Right. Right.
But I thought that reminds me a lot of how our guides work with us. It's like you kind of have this highway. There's a direction we defined where that was going to go. Okay. Okay. And then our guides are helping us down that path. And we can screw it up because we can yank the steering wheel and go off, but they play a role there in keeping us on course. And so for me, what I really, really, particularly over the last couple of years, have been hyper focused on is just learning to listen.
Right.
Listen to us at a soul level. Listen to my higher self.
And trust what you
Listen
get.
to, and then yeah,
Trust.
totally trust.
Yes.
Totally trust.
Yes.
And I'm so thankful and have so much gratitude. I go to bed every night with expressing my gratitude to the team of people that are helping people, entities, God, Jesus, whoever's,
Right. Supporting your journey here.
loving me enough to make sure that I'm staying on a path that's the right path.
Yeah. What's next for you? You've had all this experience and had all this impact. What's on your soul going forward?
So it's gotten down to some real stuff, which is I've got a 97-year-old dad next door that's got dementia, and that's a lot of focus.
Yeah.
I actually pulled my grandson out of school the latter part of last year and homeschooled him for 6 months. He wasn't being successful and was struggling. I told his parents, just let me have him for a little while. So I got him tested for all these things, found out he had severe ADHD, he had this condition called dysgraphia, all these
You had a lot of
problems
adversity.
that were preventing him from being successful. We got all those things fixed, plugged him back into the school, and now he's a straight A student. But I have lived a life thinking I have to go do these big things because that's been my history, is just build big companies, do big, think big. Build houses, It's like everything's been big.
Right.
And I've had to.
Sometimes the biggest thing is spending time with your dad.
Right, exactly.
Right?
So what are we supposed to be doing right now? Has nothing to do with a project, you know.
Right.
Just feeling comfortable being.
Yeah.
Just be.
Exactly. There's a power in that.
Listen and it'll come to you,
There's a
So
power in that. And I think a lot of people feel that silence and presence is a waste of time. But that is really the most powerful time, is when you are completely aligned and silent within yourself, connected to yourself, in your column of light, in your energy and connection with yourself at source, and really present. Because everything we create begins with our energy, everything.
mm-hmm.
So that space, when you can tap into the 0 point field, when you can tap into yourself in that way and just be really present,
Mm-hmm.
and allow the information to come, or the guidance or the direction or whatever, and you're not doing anything really except being, that's the inception point for then bringing it into form, whatever it is, caring for dad, helping the grandson, guiding whatever people forward, supporting your family in whatever way. That's all the manifestation coming forth and being birthed from that presence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people don't allow themselves the luxury. There's so much to do, you know? Gotta go, go, go. We gotta do,
Yeah.
give, give, give. It's like you also have to give to yourself first and foremost. You have to pour in, you have to align, be centered, tap into your own wisdom, your own knowing, stop seeking. Just bring it all back in, bring all your energy back in. And that is your power center, really.
And it's real, you know. I mean, I've learned. I
Mm-hmm.
remember sitting on my sofa one day and I was kind of like up like this one day, and all of a sudden I felt a ball in my hand rolling around, literally, like I could touch it. It was moving my skin, you know.
Tangibly.
Had no idea tangibly. I said, well, what the heck is this? I did some research and I talked to some people and they said, it's called a chi ball. It's like Tai Chi. Tai Chi is all about moving energy, you know. And then I met a guy who said, look, create your chi ball, create an intention, put it into the chi ball, and then release it. And that's helps accelerate manifestation, really. And so every morning when I get up, 4:30 in the morning, I'll meditate usually for a while. And then I'll decide what my intention for the day is going to be. I create my chi ball and then I release it
I
to the
love
energy, or I
that.
release it to myself, depending on what it is, you know.
Right. But I love that you have that morning practice
Oh, yeah.
because
That's,
when you start from that space, there's something really powerful about that. You're very centered, you're very present, you're moving energy.
mm-hmm.
This is a very powerful place. I can't believe that our time is up already. That just went, I knew it would go quick, but thank you so much. Ivo, do you have any words of wisdom
I think
before
we've covered,
us get off
we
the
covered the universe here. So I
podcast?
appreciate you giving me a chance. Like I said, this is the first time I've been able to talk to an audience that, you
Is
know,
receptive.
really has a spiritual
Mhm,
bent to them for sure.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Most of the time it's a, you know, group of business
Professional.
people, you know, professionals or salespeople or something like that, which is still good because again, we're trying to connect them all, you know, to this higher message.
Right.
But I appreciate having this opportunity because it's unique for me and it gives me a chance to talk about some of my story that I can't just put it out on the table quite in the same way
Mhm.
like this, you know. I still weave it in there, but it's not putting it all out there, you know. So I appreciate
Right.
that. I have a lot of gratitude
Yeah.
to you for giving me that opportunity.
Well, thank you for being here. And to my audience, thank you all for walking beside me on this journey. I love you all. I'm so grateful you're here. I hope you guys go out in the world, reflect on some of the things that Ivo has said today, and go out and live your best lives. Take care. We'll talk to y'all later. We'll see you next time. Bye.